Welcome to First Strike right here on VEASAN. I'm your host, Dave Ross. For the next hour, we're going to break down everything from a very intriguing card we have coming up tomorrow night here. Should be a really good main event when you've got Yair Rodriguez against Brian Ortega. Should be a pretty interesting clash, and those numbers have been moving all week. We'll discuss those with our hosts, and we've got a stellar cast and crew for you today. Lou Finocchiaro is going to join us momentarily. Kevin Iole is going to join us. Jordan Sherwood's going to join us from Chicago, and James Lynch is going to join us north of the border from Canada. So let's bring in the aforementioned Lou Finocchiaro. You can follow him as I do at Gamblue on Twitter, and also the host of the Bout Business podcast. Lou and you and I talked on Tuesday for First Strike First Look. Now we talk 3 days later on a Friday, and I want to get your thoughts because the numbers I mentioned, they've moved a little bit here with Brian Ortega against Yair Rodriguez. When you look at the weigh-ins, and I think you do that better than most in this business, did you glean anything from these two men today as it stands right now? Yair Rodriguez about plus $1.45 here. Ortega, he went up a little bit as the week went on to about minus $1.70.
There was not anything overly revealing at the weigh-in with regard to the main event, Dave. Yair Rodriguez was the first to step on the scale, made weight fine. Then maybe 40 minutes later, Ortega jumped on with no issues. And so not a lot there, not a lot of movement through the week, competitive fight. You know, I've really been adamant. I think that how you view Max Holloway is how you view each side of this fight. To me, I think that the competitive fight that Yair had with Max Holloway was indicative of Holloway's waning skills. And it made Yair look a little better than he thought. And I think that's why you're seeing some action with Yair. On the way I look at it, the Max Holloway that Ortega fought 3 years ago wasn't near the Max Holloway that Yair fought. And I think that the combination of a ground game, a world-class submission grappling game is going to be the difference in this fight, especially in the 5-round affair, where after 3-4 rounds, I think that Yair will naturally slow just a little bit, and Ortega is going to be able to get a hold of him and drag him down. You know,
Lou, when I look at the sideways that you might be able to play this from a prop perspective here, if you wanted to back the dog, which I don't think you and I do in this case with El Pantera here in Yair Rodriguez, but it doesn't feel like he's going to have the finishing capabilities in this one. To get a sub, it's 18-1. To get a KO, TKO, or DQ, shorter numbers there at 4-1 there. If he's going to win, it feels like it might be by decision at plus 330. If you were inclined to back the dog, which way would you try to maximize your value, or would you take it at the straight plus $1.40, $1.45 price?
That's a great question because I really don't regard Yair as top 5 material in the weight class. I'm not trying to be harsh.
No.
It's just, it may be my mistake in handicapping. We'll find out Saturday night. I would think, though, that it's not out of the question for TKO, KO, or finish only because of his kicks, his elbows, his spins. That's about all he's got, I think, to try and trip Ortega up. I think Ortega is going to steal a page out of Frankie Edgar's book and not give Yair the space he needs to succeed.
Yeah, conversely, when you're looking for pathways for T-City, Brian Ortega here, he wants to get close, right? That's exactly what he wants to do. And what I love about Ortega's style, he can finish it in many different ways here. We know that. We've seen that. He's got KO power there, and that's plus 425 if he can get a stoppage. And certainly he can get you that submission. That's why they call him T-City. He's going to throw up those triangles if he's on his back, plus $2 there. Win by decision plus 275. So I guess the question there at 4.5 rounds here, do you think this one gets stopped, or do you think we're going to the cards here?
Yeah, if I wasn't already invested in Ortega straight up from a week ago, I'd be looking at inside the distance plus 155. I do think, listen, he almost got Volkanovski. In fact, how he didn't is still a mystery.
Right.
And I don't think that Yair is going to be able to put up that kind of defense. If Ortega gets a knee and arm or shoulder or neck, I think it's going to be a short night.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I still can't believe Volk got out of not one but 2 submission attempts from Brian Ortega, or we might have had a new champion in this weight class at 145 pounds. And that's kind of what I'm picking up what you're putting down there, Lou. No disrespect to Yair, but I wonder if he's in for a rude awakening with a guy that's clearly top 3, certainly top 5 in this division. So we'll find out how pedigree rather plays out in this one. Let's get to the women's strawweight, and this could be an intriguing matchup here with Michelle Waterson, a sizable dog here at plus 260 against Amanda Lemos here. She's over a $3 betting favorite here. But we know that Waterson's been in with the better women in this division, but Lemos feels like maybe it could be her time. Is this as big a mismatch as the odds might indicate?
Well, that's a great question because Lemos opened 465 or so. And so it's dropped a basis point and a half down to -3, and I'll watch it to see if it continues to melt away. You hit it on the head. The Karate Hottie's been in with the who's who elite, but she falters when she gets to top 5 class. She's just not that strong. She's not that fast, but she's gifted, tough, and diligent. I think this is a case where Lemos is just too much savage, too much explosion. I'm glad I'm nowhere near this fight. I would tend to think that Lemos has a chance inside the distance, but I don't want to disrespect Waterson based on her body of work previously and coming into this.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to look at it. There might be a stay away spot here. So again, juiced heavily to the over for 2.5 rounds at -215. Do you think, again, you and I talk about it every week, and I think it bears repeating here, certainly when you're trying to handicap these things. If it goes to the cards, that's where it can get dicey. Do you think this is a play, if you had one, that it does go over that 2.5 rounds?
The market sure seems to think so, and I'm surprised by that because I was of the opinion that Lemos might just be too furious. But watching the lines and where they're at has me really in a position to watch this one. I think Lemos could just overwhelm her, but the market thinks opposite, and maybe on this one I'll watch.
Yeah, plus 225 if you think Lemos can get it done via KO, TKO, or DQ. And conversely, I'm sure Michelle Waterson would like to get this down to the mat. If she could win by decision, plus 380 if you wanted to take a longer shot on the underdog. You and I spoke on Tuesday again, first strike, first look. Take a listen to it. We talked about Jillian Lee against Muslim Salikov here. Salikov still the solid favorite, minus $1.65. I know you like the dog in this one. Anything to change your mind here in the last 3 days?
Nothing has, really. I like the fact that Jingliang Li has physical advantages, length, height, reach, age. He's been training at Sanford with Rachmanov, who is basically the prototypical twin of Khamzat Chimaev, who finished Li Jingliang in his last fight. I look for Jingliang, the Chinese fighter, to bounce big here against a 38-year-old Sokolov that is good, durable, but maybe just a little bit premeditated and I don't want slow, diligent. And I think Jingliang, an uneven fighter with his performances, but he's a fighter that's beaten Eliseo dos Santos Zaleski as well as Ponzinibbio. And I think that's the kind of performance we're going to see from him tomorrow morning.
I can't wait to see that. And again, a good point about tomorrow morning here for everybody. Get your wagers in early for the early start tomorrow. Here, not going to be out here on the West Coast in Sin City. Miesha Tate's back in this card. She's dropping down to 125. I saw her on the IG and on Twitter. She looks good, but still drawn to get that extra 10 pounds out. She's still over a $2 betting favorite against lucky Lauren Murphy. How much luck does Lauren Murphy need to cash that ticket this weekend?
Lauren Murphy just needs to maintain her focus and do everything she can do to effort Tate, make Tate work, grind, and push her backwards. The more exertion you can put on Tate, the more I think she'll feel the cut to 25. And I think that Lauren Murphy, who opened plus 140, I love when I see a minus 165 grow to 215 or so. That's a very profitable segment within mixed martial arts betting if you're looking at the dog, and I'm going to take all that extra advantage and give Murphy a shot. It's
something you and I talked about on Tuesday, and this is why we do that, and you got to check it out on Tuesday, that if you like the dog in this one, you advise everybody wait on lucky Lauren Murphy, and you're going to get a better number. That's happened, Lou. You were spot on again in the last 3 days because the betting market, Cupcake Tate, look, former champion, 135 pounds. Everybody remembers the win over Holly Holm. and all of a sudden maybe that line gets a little bit inflated. Certainly for my dollar, it feels like lucky Warren Murphy would be the right side to get the best value. I got about a minute and a half to go here. I just wanted to talk about your podcast here, the Bout Business Podcast, what people get when they listen each and every week.
Each week they get 16 minutes of simply my synopsis. It's 3 to 5, 6 bets on each UFC card. They're broken down. We keep track. We keep a running total of profitability. And we're blessed enough to have a great following. And I sure appreciate you and the boys at VSiN supporting the podcast, as well as allowing me to come on this outstanding show each week.
Okay, in the final 45 seconds, Elliot Bowman, my producer, just gave me some breaking news that I did not know. Lou Finocchiaro, you're on TikTok.
Yes, I've had periphery people that advise me, tell me I have to be on TikTok, and I'm still figuring it out. If I could call Stormy or Danielle and figure out how to use it better, I'd be much better off. But eventually, you walk and then you run. But I am using it to try and drive eyeballs to the podcast.
Okay, I am not on TikTok. I couldn't even figure out, basically how to just log in every day to do my job. Where can they find you on TikTok, Lou?
I have absolutely no idea. I would think it would be at Gamblu, but that's how new I am, Dave. Thank you.
I love it.
But I send out posts, and eventually I'll be more apt and be able to navigate much better.
They'll find you on TikTok, that's for sure. Lou Finocchiaro, appreciate you as always. When we come back, Kevin Iole joins the program right here. It's First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. VSiN is broadcasting live from NBA Summer League now through July 17th. So catch The Edge with Jonathan Von Tobel and Matt Humans at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, live from the NBA Summer League every weekday. Also going to have special guests, exclusive content, live updates all throughout the VSiN shows. So for more, follow us at VSiN Live on Twitter and at VSiN Live on YouTube. Back here on First Strike, it is always a pleasure to have Kevin Iole join the program. You can follow him as I do at Kevin I on Twitter. Kevin, you're a great addition to First Strike each and every week. We love getting your handicaps here. Obviously, you know the world of boxing and the world of MMA better than most out there. So I want to get your thoughts on this card. And again, I feel like I say it each and every week, but it's an intriguing card, even for a non-pay-per-view, and some profitable spots out there that I think you've identified. I want to get to one with Ricky Simón, who is a plus 135 dog against Jack Shore. Why do you think you think Simón might shine in this spot?
Jack Shore is mainly a striker, but he's not that quick-handed of a guy, in my opinion. And Simón has a more diverse game, so I think Simón is going to win in the scrambles. If they get to the floor, Simón is a guy that can do well in the scrambles. I think he can hold his own on the feet, and I think he's going to be able to win the grappling aspect of the game. And I think when you look at that. Like, I might have passed that if it was like, minus $1.10 either way. But when I look at it and I say, hey, I'm gonna get Ricky Simón at, plus 135, plus 140, I think that's pretty good value right there.
You know what's interesting too, Kevin, and you understand this certainly in the boxing world. When you look at a guy that's undefeated like Jack Shore and you throw him in there against a guy like Ricky Simón, in boxing, you normally don't do that, right? You want the undefeated guys to build it up. In MMA, and certainly in the UFC, they're going to throw you in there with top-notch competition, and that's what I think Ricky Simón is. And he's taking a little bit of the money here this week as it's gone on. Now, when it gets to scoring, and I follow you on Twitter every week, everybody else should too, I always say when these things hit the cards, hold your breath. This one, again, juiced heavily to the over 2.5 rounds at minus 230. So do you worry that if it goes to the cards, that judges might not see the same fight that we see as analysts?
I think one of the things that it happens to me a lot, right? So, and I actually posted a photo of this from T-Mobile Arena at UFC 276. cameraman will stand right in front of you, or the corner pad's right in front of you, depending on where you're sitting, and you have that obstructed view. Sometimes and when you're actually, the judges don't have that problem, but they have the problem of maybe the referee being there, or they're on the other side of the cage, and the guy who has his back to him is like throwing punches on the inside, and that judge can't see what's going on. So you do always have to worry about that. But I look at it and I say, hey, you can't worry in a handicapping sense about those kind of things, because then, you're never going to bet, right? The referee is just going to never do it. I look at it, I say, how do I think this fight is going to go? And I think that, if it stays standing and it's a striking battle throughout, I think it favors Jack Shore. But I think it's going to be up and down, and I think Simone is going to be able to change levels on him. And if he does that, I think, he's going to be the one dictating the fight. And if he dictates the fight, I think he wins. And do the judges see it that way? I hope they do. But it's always something to be worried about.
And again, Twitter is not real life. But I think sometimes people on Twitter don't understand exactly what you're talking about unless you've been octagon side like we have for big-time fights. Sometimes it's harder than what the view you actually get on TV. So it's not an easy job that these judges have, that is for sure. Miesha Tate's coming down in weight. Of course, the former champion at 135 pounds. She comes down to 125. Looks like she made the weight pretty easily against lucky Lauren Murphy here. What do you make of this one? Because we know that Lauren likes to get these fights down to the ground and wrestle, and that's kind of Miesha Tate's world. What do you make of this matchup?
I like Miesha Tate by decision here, and what I saw was at 110. I don't think Miesha is going to finish the fight, right? There's too many questions about her. Number one, Lauren Murphy is a very strong fighter, a difficult fighter to finish. So let's start with that. Then you got Miesha Tate dropping another 10 pounds that, we don't know about. So I don't think Miesha finishes the fight. So to me, this is a fight for sure that goes the distance. And now I say, who do I think is the better overall fighter? And I think that's Miesha Tate. So instead of laying Miesha's the favorite in the fight, I'm not sure exactly what is it, 180 I think it was, but I can get minus 110 on Miesha by decision. When I think this fight is going to the cards, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, she's over a $2 betting favorite as people have bet Miesha Tate as the week's gone on here. And to that point here, very quickly, Kevin, when you look at the pathways here to victory, this looks like this is a fight that's going to go down to the ground, right? We're going to see who's wrestling and grappling might actually be better in this one here. So if you like it by KO, TKO, or DQ, you're going to get long numbers here. Plus 850 for Miesha Tate to do it with the hands, and 11-1 for Lauren Murphy to do this. Again, it feels like decision, to your point here, minus 110 for Miesha Tate. For the fight to go to decision, you wouldn't lay the 3-1, would you? But it does feel like that's where we're headed.
I think it's going to decision, and the fact that I think Tate is going to win the fight. That's why I didn't play, because I always like to have, if the fight goes to decision, I know I won, right? But in this case, I look at it and I say that's too much to lay when I think Miesha Tate's going to win the fight, and I can get her at such short price. So I'm getting her at minus $1.10. I think that's a pretty good play for me right there.
Yeah, instead of laying the 3-1 for this fight just to go to the decision, if you think Miesha's going to get it done there, that's probably the salient way to go, minus $1.10. Salikov against Jillian Lee is an interesting matchup here. We've seen Lee take a little bit of the money here, but I think you like the favorite.
I do. I think, I think one of the things that happened to Li Jingliang is that fight with Chimaev, I think takes a lot out of him. I think he was trending in the wrong direction anyways. Salikov has that great Sambo game. And I think he's going to thump him pretty hard. I think this is going to be kind of a one-sided fight right here. I mean, it could be a stoppage. Jingliang's a pretty tough fighter, but so that's why I went with the decision. I kind of was sitting there going, minus $1.75 again. That's getting up into that territory where I'm not real comfortable with. That's about as high as I like to go. But so I feel like Salikov's going to put on a really good show here.
Minus $1.55 right now for Salikov to get it done over Lee at plus $1.35. Let's get to the main event here. I'm very intrigued by this matchup. When you have T-City, Brian Ortega against El Pantera and Yair Rodriguez here. And again, it hasn't moved a whole lot. It's moved a little bit as the week's gone on, but it still feels like if any of the money or people are backing, it might be more towards T-City, now up to $1.70. What do you make of this main event matchup?
I think it's a really intriguing fight, right? And I could see either guy winning this fight. I mean, Ortega is definitely the better grappler, the better ground fighter. And if it goes to the ground and they're there for any period of time, I think it's an Ortega fight. So I actually picked Yair to win. And the reason I did that is I went through Brian's record and the significant strikes he absorbed, and he takes a tremendous amount of blows. I mean, just look at he's been doing and the shots that he's been taking, and now he's fighting a good striker who throws from unusual angles and hits very hard. And I think that's a bad combination for Brian. I do think Brian's going to work to get this fight down and try to get a submission. But I think, when you look at it, he hasn't been able, to do that for a while. You thought he might be able to do that against the Korean Zombie. He didn't pull that off. So I look for this fight to be a stand-up fight, and given the volume that Ortega takes, even though he dishes out pretty good himself, I think that led me to Rodriguez. Now, my other play on that one, do I think there's a finish? And so I looked at it and I thought, hey, maybe Rodriguez, if I think he's going to land all those strikes, maybe Rodriguez by KO. When I saw it, it was plus 400. But I thought, you know what, Brian is a tough guy, and, he's only been finished, once or twice in his career. One of them was a stoppage to Max Holloway. And I looked at it and I said, you know what, I'm just going to bet the fight goes the distance. It's even money. I think that's 5 rounds. That's a fair choice there. So I like this fight to go the distance, and I'll take it at even money. Yeah,
and DraftKings give you a plus $1.10 if it does go all 5. And boy, yeah, again, you look back at that Brian Ortega fight against Max. I'm glad they actually stopped it when they did in that 5th and final round there, because Ortega had taken a lot of damage in that fight.
Yeah, I was there. He looked terrible. I mean, it just looked terrible.
Yeah, he could not stop anything from Max that night. Very quickly, 30 seconds ago, Kevin, Lou Finocchiaro, who joined us earlier in the program, he made the revelation that he's on TikTok. Are you, sir, also on TikTok?
I am not, so I don't know if I'm going to pull. I got enough social media as it is. I don't know if I'm going to pull that off, so not me yet.
You know what? If Lou's on there, maybe we'd have to get down there as well, Kevin, but I'm not dancing. I'll tell you that's for sure. Hey, enjoy the fight Saturday night. It's always great to have you on the program. There he is, everybody. Kevin Iole. Follow him at Kevin I on Twitter. Back with Jordan Sherwood next on First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Whether you're a novice or a seasoned veteran in the sportsbook, VSiN is here to help you improve your sports betting skills. VSiN has assembled the leading team of insiders and handicappers to analyze every angle of every game, so you can make the most informed wagering decisions. The VSiN approach is simple. The more you know as a sports bettor, the better chance you have to succeed. We cover every sport from the bettor's perspective, and we bring that excitement, experience, nail-biting agony, and of course, the pure fun of the action to our broadcasts. VSiN also has unparalleled digital resources on vsin.com and our mobile app. Plus, our daily emails bring you today's biggest stories, and Point Spread Weekly delivers in-depth coverage of the biggest betting events of the week. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you plenty of ways to bet the UFC. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You're going to be able to bet on more ways than just the main event. DraftKings has great odds on fight lines, total rounds, and futures for all MMA events. Eligibility restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for the full terms and conditions. We roll on First Strike right here on VSiN. Always a pleasure to be joined in the great city of Chicago. Jordan Sherwood, you can follow him on Twitter as I do at Woodon1063, and the host of the Unnamed MMA podcast. Jordan, great to have you back on. I hope you're recharged after a week off. We missed you on the show last week. But before we go anywhere, I got to figure this out, because Kevin Iole is not on TikTok. Lou Finocchiaro is on TikTok. Is Jordan Sherwood on TikTok?
Jordan Sherwood is not on TikTok. Haven't figured out the best way to use it. So I don't know if we're questioning if it's good or not, that Kevin is not on it. Lou is. I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, look, we still haven't even named the podcast. So let me get through that first, and then I'll address the TikTok, handle, if you will, but obviously on Twitter. And that's what I feel most comfortable sending out my content.
If we can figure out how to monetize it here on First Strike, we'll get it on TikTok. But so far, we're out right now. Jordan, let's get to some of your best bets that you like in this card this week. Let's start off with Dustin Jacoby here, a small favorite, minus $1.05 against Dong Jung. Why do you think that this short price here for Jacoby is the right side?
Look, I mean, he's looked great since he returned to the UFC. He's 5-0-1. And for me, a guy that's faded Dustin Jacoby the last 2 times he's been in the octagon, he's going to get a fight that's going to be purely a kickboxing fight. And that's exactly what Dustin Jacoby wants. He's going to hit harder. He's going to have more pressure, more volume than Jung. And leg kicks are going to be a significant factor. Jung really doesn't check them. And obviously, Dustin Jacoby throws a lot of them. So I also question a guy in Jung who, yes, he did knock out, Kennedy a couple of fights ago, but also he went split draw with Sam Alvey. And look, no one really does that against Sam Alvey. No discredit to him. So, yeah, Jacoby's small play on him as, $1.05, merely a pick 'em, because it's not a fight Jacoby's going to have to worry about wrestling and grappling and a guy that's going to outpace him. So I think Dustin Jacoby gets his hand raised once again and now is 6-0-1 since his return to the UFC.
Jordan, I know when you initially looked at this card, you saw a lot of value in potential dogs barking big time come Saturday night. One of them, Jinglian Lee against Salikov here. Salikov right now is still minus about $1.77 we're seeing here as that number has changed a little bit with Lee as the week's gone on. Why do you think the dog is in play here?
Yeah, I think it is just because, again, of the matchup. And look, I think a lot of people are recency bias. Jing Liang did not look great against Khamzat Chimaev the last time we saw him, but who looks good against Chimaev outside of Gilbert Burns? He's a guy in Jing Liang who can dirty up a fight, can put on some pressure, and is really only at his worst when he's going to have to defend grappling. And he's not going to have to do that against, the king of Kung Fu. The king of Kung Fu is going to want to establish distance. He's going to want to utilize some of those flashy kicks. And I think Liang could survive on the feet enough in that first round to then get it into the later rounds and utilize his overall game. So I like him in this fight. I think it's certainly a winnable fight because it's not a guy that's going to present the kryptonite that we've seen plague the Leech in his UFC career. So a small play certainly as the underdog, but I think it also goes the over as well. I don't really see a finish happening. I think the Leech is just going to outwork him, Salikov, and outpoint him and get his hand raised at the end.
And if you like that over right now, juiced a little bit there at minus $1.50 to go over 2.5 rounds here. If you think it's going to go the decision, you can get a better price there at minus $1.20. That's certainly where Jordan's leaning on this one. Speaking of leans here, you actually have a lean towards Herbert Burns in his fight against Bill Algeo here. And Burns right now is a solid dog in this one. Why do you think that might be the right way to lean?
I think it is because, look, both these guys were slated to fight other people on this card. Both opponents fall out, so now they quickly get matched up against each other. And Bill Algeo was not preparing for a grappler with the style of Herbert Burns. And look, we've seen Herbert Burns get smashed extremely early in fights. So I understand why maybe the early line on Bill Algeo. But what we know about Bill Algeo is he gets taken down and gets taken down a lot in his UFC career. And if Herbert Burns gets one takedown in that first round and a half, I do not believe Bill Algeo is getting up. And I believe Herbert Burns is going to snatch on a submission because obviously we know, being the brother of Gilbert Burns and the whole family tradition of Burns is. So I think it's just difficult to ask Bill Algeo to change the game plan and prepare for a guy that's going to look as good as he is for the takedowns. So that's why I love the value on Herbert Burns, especially as the underdog and as big of an underdog that he is. And not only that, I think you got to play the submission prop as well. Herbert Burns via submission. I've seen it some places as high as almost 4-1. And how's Herbert Burns going to win the fight? He's going to win it via submission. But you also, Dave, you also have to guard yourself on if Herbert Burns can't get Bill Algeo out of there quick, then the under at 2.5 is likely also the play because Bill Elgio is going to be able to overwhelm Herbert Burns in that second to third round and get his hand raised.
Yeah, because featherweights, you normally think, all right, they're going to go the distance here. You actually like the under in that one at minus $1.35, that if it's either going to be Burns snatching a neck, looking for a sub, if not, then maybe Algio gets him out of there with the hands. That's the idea here, to safeguard maybe the under 2.5.
Overwhelms him, gets a takedown, and just, TKO victory, ground and pound for Bill Algio. Yeah.
I'm really, and I think some of our experts here, I feel like we've got some differing opinions of what we're going to see from Miesha Tate coming down to 125 as Cupcake, the former champion at 135, is going to take on Lucky Warren Murphy here. The money's coming in on Miesha, and you can understand why, Jordan. This is one of the more popular fighters that we've seen in the UFC as a champion back at 135 here. What do you make of this matchup? Because when I look at it we know this fight's going to go down to the ground. I think both women want to get it down there. Do you worry about the weight cut for Miesha here going down to 25 against what could be a bigger woman in Warren Murphy?
I did up until I saw today that Miesha Tate was one of the earlier fighters on the scale, and she looked great. Didn't look like it was a tough cut at all. Look, she had talked about this cut at some point in her mixed martial arts UFC career. She's definitely one of the smaller bantamweights as well. And then forget about the weight cut, just from a stylistic fight. I mean, I think Miesha Tate, her takedowns, we've seen Lauren Murphy be taken down a lot of times before. Her top control, that is of Tate's, is great, and she looks to take the back and certainly can look to do that. Yeah, Lauren Murphy's been at this weight class. She's been in it with the best, obviously with Valentina Shevchenko. But I lean Miesha Tate, not at that 210 value, but I lean for her to win via decision because that's what Miesha Tate does. She's not really a finisher. She's more of a grinder. Get those points, rack up those points. And this is the last opportunity for Miesha Tate. And quite frankly, she knows with a victory and a big one, a nice one, she's getting a title shot against Valentina Shevchenko because the flyweight division doesn't have any challengers for her. So big win, and that's why I'm going with Miesha Tate via decision, which is, I think, $1.05, $1.10 in most spots. You
just nailed the elephant in the room for me. And that is, why would Miesha Tate at this stage of her career, now she's a mom, why would she cut weight to go down to 125 and make that horrific weight cut? It's for exactly what you said, that if she can look good, boy, you can just think that, Dana White's drooling, salivating at the prospects of Valentina Shevchenko against Miesha Tate. So you're right. That's the pathway there. Sometimes you have to look at why fights are made. I think that's exactly why Miesha is moving down 10 pounds south to try to get one more title shot, this one at 125. I do want to get to the main event with you very quickly because I think we also have some splitting and differing of opinions of what we might see in the main event here with Yair Rodriguez going up against T-City Brian Ortega. How do you think this fight stylistically plays out?
I think if you're leaning Yair Rodriguez, which I am, I think we're going to have a stand-up fight. I think Yair Rodriguez is going to utilize his speed advantage and his versatility of striking and distance to keep Brian Ortega at bay and win the fight and win it on points. Obviously, if you're on Ortega's side, you believe at some point the takedown defense, which is, it's good, it's not great for Yair Rodriguez, is going to succumb to the grappling wizardry that we know that Brian Ortega has, and then at some point, Ortega is going to be able to snatch on a submission or control enough on the ground to get his hand raised. I worry about how Brian Ortega is going to look. We haven't seen him since that war against Alexander Volkanovski, and albeit Yair Rodriguez, we saw him against Max Holloway. Maybe not controversial loss to him. It was 48-47 on two judges' scorecards. Some argue that Yair Rodriguez won 3 rounds to 2, but he did hold his own against Max Holloway, who still looks to be the second best or the best featherweight that we have outside of Volkanovski. So small play on Yair Rodriguez. Enough on the feet, keeps the fight standing to win 3 rounds, 4 rounds against the one that Brian Ortega is going to get his hand raised for.
Got about 45 seconds to go here, Jordan. Very quickly to that end. If you like Yair, would you take the bigger number here by KO, TKO, or DQ, thinking that Ortega's taken a lot of shots in the last couple fights here at plus $4? And if you want to go Ortega, that maybe he gets that sub that he's so good at plus $2. That way you kind of lock in profit if it doesn't go the distance.
I go the former. I go the latter, not the former. I think Yair Rodriguez does not knock out Ortega. I think it's a lot of points, a lot of build-up on that, but I do believe Ortega could, because he's that good, wrap up a submission win. That's the direction I would go.
Jordan, great conversation as always. Follow him on Twitter at Woodon1063 and check out the Unnamed MMA podcast. Does a great job out of Chicago. Thank you, Jordan. When we come back, James Lynch is going to join us north of the border. Come on back. It's First Strike right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. The VSiN Summer Special is here. For only $19, you get everything VSiN has to offer from now to the end of the month. So sign up today. You're going to get VSiN's daily best bets, including Adam Burke's daily MLB best bets, NFL preseason coverage, premium articles on golf, of course the UFC, USFL even when football comes back, and NASCAR. So if you want that full VSiN experience, which features a daily best bets email, every edition of Point Spread Weekly, use of our betting tools, and a live video stream whenever you want it, the cost is only $19 to be a subscriber through July 31st. So sign up now at VSiN.com/summer. We roll on First Strike right here on VSiN, and what a pleasure it is to have James Lynch join us from Canada, north of the border. You can follow him on Twitter, as I do, at Lynch on Sports. Of course, he is the co-host of The Gambler's Perspective with our buddy here at Circus Sportsbook, Nick Kalikas. James, great to have you on the program here on First Strike. Excited to have you on here and pick your brain about this card. And you and I were talking a little bit before we came on here. It is a really deep, sneaky good card here. Let's start right at the top of the main event, because I feel like our experts here a little bit split on what we might see in the main event with T-City, Brian Ortega against Yair Rodriguez. We know Pantera is tough to get a hold of. He likes to stand on the feet and trade. We know T-City might like to throw up a triangle or try to get you into a finishing position here and get this fight down to the ground. How do you see the main event going out?
It's a really close fight, as the odds indicate, but I do give the edge here to Brian Ortega with the thing you just mentioned there, which is his ground game. I mean, no one has had the current featherweight champion, Alex Volkanovski, in as much danger as Brian Ortega did when he nearly submitted him in their last fight. So, you just look at that X factor there, that I think Ortega's ground game is the best in the weight class. His striking's come a long way, though. We saw that win over the Korean Zombie a few fights ago where, he beat Zombie at his own game. It was a very surprising performance from him, just having that time off and really improving his striking. So I think even if this fight stays standing, you give the edge to Rodriguez, but I think Ortega can hold his own, and to me that X factor is going to be the ground game. Now, will he get a submission? We'll see. I think these two guys are going to go at it. I think it's going to be one of those fight of the night type performances. I could see this going the distance, honestly, because both guys are extremely tough to finish. Here's an interesting thing for you. Brian Ortega's only losses in the UFC are to former champion Max Holloway and to current champion Alex Volkanovski. That's pretty impressive if you think of the level of opposition that he's fought in his career. So I think Ortega edges this one out, but I'm leaning more towards decision. And if a finish does happen, I think it'll be a little bit later. But this is a really amazing fight and a great main event for Saturday night. Over
4.5 rounds right now is plus $1 here at DraftKings. If you think it's going to go all 5, plus $1.10, so you get a little bit of juice if you think it can go 5. I think you just nailed it, James. When you look at the pedigree of Brian Ortega, and I think this is why Yair Rodriguez has fought some who's as well. But really, Brian Ortega's been there and been so close, at least in the Volkanovski fight, to being the champion in this weight class. Now, Max Holloway didn't work out so well, as it did go to the 5th round before he got stopped. Do you worry about the volume of damage that Ortega has taken recently in some of these classic fights that we've seen?
Well, he took a lot of damage in the Holloway fight, but that was an extensive layoff after that. I mean, we're talking more than a year when he was able to come back and fight the Korean Zombie. In the Volkanovski fight, he took damage, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the Max Holloway fight. I actually think the fact that Ortega has fought a little bit more often actually plays into his hand here. Rodriguez, he had that USADA suspension where he didn't give his whereabouts, so he was suspended for 6 months. He's had some injuries. There just hasn't been a lot of activity for him, and he actually put on a much more surprising performance against Max Holloway than I thought. I thought Holloway would have much more dominant win, but Rodriguez, I think, stock went up a little bit, but the damage isn't a concern for me. Ortega's young enough where I think that he's not at the stage where you have to start worrying about his durability. I think his durability will hold up fine here. And again, he's fought the best of the best. Volkanovski, Holloway doesn't get much better than that.
Talking with James Lynch here from Canada, north of the border. First time we've had a Canadian host guest on this show, so we appreciate that. James, I want to talk a little bit about Miesha Tate, and I can't believe this is not the co-main event of the evening. It's earlier in the card against Lucky Lauren Murphy. She's going to drop down 125 pounds in this fight here. And again, Miesha, we understand why the betting market supports her, because she is a fan favorite. We've seen that as the week has gone on. Miesha has taken a little bit more of the money. We know they want to wrestle. Both these women are great grapplers. What do you make of this matchup at 25? Do you think Lauren Murphy will be the bigger woman inside that cage come Saturday night?
Well, I think size-wise, they're both about the same. If people remember, Lauren Murphy used to compete at bantamweight as well. So I've heard that argument as well, too, that Miesha's going to be the bigger fighter or whatever because she's coming down. That's not true. Murphy has fought at 135 as well. I'm surprised on this line, honestly, and I think it's because what you just mentioned there, Miesha being the popular fighter. I like Lauren Murphy here. I'm surprised we're getting her at underdog odds with the fact that not only is she tough to put away, the only fighter to finish her at 125 is the current champ, Valentina Shevchenko, and that was a late finish. On top of that, Lauren Murphy's looked great since dropping down to flyweight. She's been, a mainstay in that weight class. She's made the weight. She's done the walk. I know Tate made weight today already, but still, fighters that tend to move down a weight class when they're older typically don't do so well. So I like the fact that Murphy's been more active there. The other thing is, and I found this out from interviewing her before this fight, Murphy spent her entire camp in Colorado at Elevation Fight Team. That's the same team as Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas. Getting to compete at Elevation there, not only is her cardio going to be better, but she's getting to train with a lot of good training partners there too. I'm really excited for Murphy here. I think she goes out there and gets it done. And if you want to be even more greedy here, instead of taking just Lauren Murphy straight up with the dog money, take her by decision. Lauren Murphy does not finish a lot of her opponents. They're usually close fights. I think you get some really good value there, but I'm surprised that Tate is the favorite here, just with the fact that she's never competed in the weight class, and she didn't look that good in her last fight. I know it was Ketlin Vieira, who's someone that people consider a contender at 135, but to me, that was the real Miesha Tate. She would retired, previously, had the one fight against Marion Renault and looked great. Renault had one foot out the door retiring. So I think the real Miesha Tate is the one we saw in the Caitlin Vieira fight. And if that Miesha Tate shows up, I think Lauren Murphy wins the decision here.
Plus 250 for lucky Lauren Murphy by decision. And you can see it's juiced heavily here, minus 335 over 2.5 rounds. So to your point there, you can get better value if you like the Lauren Murphy side. The odds say it's going to go to the distance here, and if it goes the distance, you get to the judges' scorecards. If she wins plus 250, I'm picking up what you're putting down there, maybe even better value on Murphy if you like the dog side in that one. I saw the Burgos and Jourdain fight, and I thought, well, this fight, somebody's going to get stopped. This is going to be wild. This is going to be crazy. But you actually have a different take on this fight, and maybe it goes a little bit longer than people think.
Yeah, and credit to our mutual friend here, Nick Kalikas and Gianni the Greek. They both like the under in this fight. I'm the other way around. I like the over, and I like the fight goes the distance prop, and simply because you've got a guy in Charles Jourdain who has a lot of submission wins. Guess what? Shane Burgos never been submitted in his career. Conversely, on the flip side, Charles Jourdain has never been knocked out. Shane Burgos has a number of wins by knockout. I think this is going to be a close competitive fight. I give the edge to Burgos because of the level of opposition he's fought, and I think Burgos, has looked great. He had a good camp. I know he got to spend some time with Josh Emmett out at Team Alpha Male. Of course, Emmett picking up a big win as an underdog a few weeks ago over Calvin Cater. I just think this is going to be one of those fight of the nights, but I don't think we'll see a finish here. Again, Jourdain last fight was a submission win. Burgos has had a number of knockout wins. It sort of cancels each other out. So I could see this fight going the distance. And I think that might be a good play in the sense that, again, Jourdain could surprise here. He's younger, but I give the edge to the veteran, Shane Burgos.
And again, if you think the fight's going to go the distance, plus money right now, plus $1.05 at DraftKings, because you're right. The narrative out there right now is play the under, minus 120 for under 2.5 rounds. But you can get that plus money if you see it differently the way you do, James. That's a very interesting handicap if you like that plus money at plus $1.05 to go all 3 rounds. I mentioned the co-main event in this one, and it's the Karate Hottie, Michelle Waterson, back in there against Amanda Lemos. Waterson, again, she's been a fan favorite for years as well. Lemos feels like she's on the rise here. We know Waterson's had the better competition throughout her career. She is a sizable dog in this one, plus 255 we're seeing at DraftKings. Is she a live dog, or is there a reason why this is priced the way it is?
I think she's a live dog in the sense that she shouldn't be this big of an underdog, if that makes sense. And you mentioned the level of opposition. If you wanted to sprinkle some money on Michelle Waterson, I think that makes sense. But Lemos, man, she looked so strong her last couple fights. Even her last loss against Jessica Andrade, she was having some success early on, and Andrade didn't really look like she knew what to do. And then out of nowhere, she goes out and gets a submission win. Another little interesting stat: these two actually trained together years ago at Jackson Wink, so there is some familiarity with both fighters. But to me, if you look at the two, Lemos has been a lot more impressive in her last couple fights. Waterson, pretty average. I know, again, good competition, but nothing really outstanding in some of those performances here. I like the favorite here, but there's no way I'm going to lay that much juice. The line is way off. I think, like, as much as I've been glowing about Lemos as well, I just don't think she should be that high of a favorite. I'd cap this as a 2-1, maybe 3-1 favorite, but I'm seeing 4-5 now almost in terms of what she brings here on the betting odds. But the pick's going to be Lemos here. And she also didn't look like she had a good weight cut today either. That's another thing to keep in mind. Yeah,
definitely. We've got about a minute to go here. And James, I want to get your thoughts on one other fight that I feel like I've got some split takes that I've heard throughout the week. And that, of course, a pretty intriguing matchup with Jingliang Li against Muslim Salikov. How do you see this fight right now? Salikov about minus $1.55 as the smaller betting favorite.
Funny you asked me that. I actually like the underdog here. Li Jingliang actually spent his entire camp at Sanford MMA, Killcliff MMA, one of the best camps in the world. That was in the U.S. as well, so no travel issues coming over here to fight in Long Island. Here's the thing with Li Jingliang. Some fights he looks really good, like the Santiago Ponzinibbio win. And then there's other fights like the Neil Magny fight where he's a little bit disappointing. I get people picking Salikov because of the style matchup, but Li Jingliang is very dangerous. If he keeps this fight standing, I can definitely see him getting an upset and outstriking his opponent here. So I'm going with the dog here just because of the fact I think he is the better fighter.
James, great having you on the program. Again, check him out with the Gambler's Perspective with our buddy Nick Kalikas right here from Circa Sports, and follow him on Twitter at Lynch on Sports. Thanks, James. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to thank Lou Finocchiaro, Kevin Iole, and Jordan Sherwood as well for joining us here. Thanks for watching First Strike. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next week right back here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.